Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I am here with you with a collaboration. It's just our imagination, and our hosts are Kathy Joe's DIYs, Rustic and Lace DIYs with Brenda, and our co-host is Craft Away with May and Z9 Designs. And you've seen all we have to work with: Band-Aids, dice, a Tide container, and yarn. All right, friends, I love yarn. I have a bunch of yarn. I crochet, I knit, I just love working with it. But what if you don't crochet or knit? I'm going to show you how to make a scarf using your sewing machine out of yarn. This paper I have here is actually a sticky paper. See me peeling it off right there. And it's also water soluble. So I am going to actually tape this down, and I'm going to load up my yarn on one side of this sticky paper. And you see here, I'm just pulling it out. I have two different yarns here because I wanted a little bit of contrast. They have the same color schemes, but I'm just pulling it and laying it on there. I love the pinks and the burgundies, and I love those muted tones. And so that's what I did here. Just laid it all out, messy, just messy. And you don't have to have anything neat and orderly or counting. You just lay it on here. And I did 4 layers, 2 layers of each yarn, and that way it just built up some different colors in there and gave me a nice platform to actually sew on. So once I get these all loaded, I am actually going to fold this sticky paper over and stick it to itself. So let's get that done. I'm just lifting the tape that I taped it down with, pulling it right over to the other side and trying to get it as even as possible. You see I've got a little lip there. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to cut off that edge that I don't have any yarn in on. And then I went up and took it to my sewing machine, and I just sewed all over, messy, 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 until I got a lot of it in there where I knew it was going to hold those yarn pieces together. And this is just warm water. Look at that magic. Warm water, it just dissolves that paper, dissolves that stickiness. You're not going to have any left over, and you can see my water changing colors there. And I'm just going to bring it on out. I'm going to actually rinse it again, and I'm going to have it all, once that water is pretty clean, I'm just going to use a towel, and I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this out very well. And then I'm going to use the towel, and I'm going to lay it out in that towel, and I'm going to squeeze it really well in there. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to roll it up just nice and tight, and I'm going to do my best to squeeze out any water that is left in that partial scarf as it is right now. You see it's kind of in rough shape, but I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Right now I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of tape over one end of my solid yarn, and I'm going to thread it through a yarn needle. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to actually do a stitch all around my scarf here so that you actually have a nice even edge. And it's very easy to do. I'm just going to do just a loop stitch where I'm going through and over the outside. And so I'm just going to run it over. Man, I'm off screen there. Let's see what I can get done here. Let me see if I can get back on screen there. It's a pretty simple stitch. It's not a running stitch, and it's not a blanket stitch, but I'm just going around and over it through one side, up and over, and through the same side again. Once I have that done all the way around, I'm going to make some tassels, and I just used a Valentine card envelope, and I wrapped 10 times around using both sets of yarn. No, I used one color of yarn. I pull it up and tie across the top there, and then I will slide it off the envelope after I cut the bottom open. I will have another piece of yarn and tie it around the center. You see the difference? I did use the 2 yarns to make the ones for the scarf. I just showed you with 1 yarn to do it. So I'm just going to tie right around that center there, make it a double knot, and I'm going to wrap it around one direction, wrap the other around the other direction, and give it another double knot on that. So I want that to stay nice and tight as I'm getting ready to create this. And I'm now going to go in and I'm going to open the bottoms of those ends up, and I am going to now attach them to my scarf. The pieces that I use to actually tie around the center to hold them together, I'm using that end to tie around the bottom of my scarf there. I'm doing 1 on each end, and then I'm going to come and do 1 right in the center. So it will give me even placement on both ends of my scarf. Whether or not I spread it out even when I was doing my just dump of yarn on there. You see, I just measured it and I'm pulling it right up through the center there and tying that on. Once I get that done and on there, I'm going to go ahead and kind of measure and make sure they're all cut evenly. And I usually do that by using the palm of my hand. Now you see I had a few stragglers there that weren't quite cut, but I use the palm of my hand and I measure it out and cut the whole end of that out. So once again, that knot is at the base of my hand towards my pinky. I wrap it around my thumb and index finger and use that as a guide, and it cuts them perfectly, and I don't have any issues with them being off. It all worked out great. So there is my scarf. Look at that. That is a no crochet, no knit, no loom scarf. Okay, now we have the project with the dice. So what I did is I have these clock pieces, these clock innards, and I grabbed those and I grabbed the dice, and I have a couple different cards. I thought I would make a game room clock, you know, have some cards on there, maybe some Skippo cards or whatever, so that, you know, you can have it out if you have a game room. I don't have a game room. I have a craft room. That's my game. What's your game? So I have first a 7-inch round I got from I got this from Walmart for $1. But I needed something bigger because of my hands. When I put my hands on the clock on there and the die, I'm going to need something larger. Now I can trim these down. That's not a big deal. That's not a big deal at all. I can trim those down as I need. And you see that the minute and the hour hand are short enough. That second hand is a little longer than I want, but when you look at where it's going to go, it won't be a big deal. But I want to be able to put the die on there, and those are mighty big for a clock this size. So what I did is I have a plastic plate, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be about the right size for what I need. But I'm not going to use a plastic plate on this because of just the different shape on there, and I'm like, well, it just isn't what I want. So I have the box that my B12 shots came in. Look at there. And I thought, well, you know what? Let's cut a few of these circles out the size of the plates, and then we'll do a little bit of paper mache with, and then when I finish the paper mache, I can actually use a little bit of my plaster of Paris and cover the. So the first thing I did is I traced that plate. on two sides of this
Let's see
box,
if it
this
all
leftover
comes together.
box. And then I went ahead and came in and just trimmed out those circles with some scissors. And it's kind of hard to trim cardboard with regular scissors, but I did it. I'm going to use my Tite Bond Quick and Thick, and I'm going to just do the edges and a little across the middle, and I'm going to stack those two cardboard pieces with the writing on the inside. So I have two clean edges. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some painter's tape, and I'm going to go all around the edge of this circle now with some painter's tape, and it should help give me a nice strong seal and something that I can actually start to paper mache over and not have any of that, the raw edge on there. Now I have some glue here to the side, and I have some old packing paper. Now the packing paper I'm just going to go ahead and fold up in a few pieces. I'm going to cut down that center, and I am just going to cut some strips. And now I can use these for my paper mache project. I didn't need too many to be cut, and I just wanted them all to be a decent size but not too big. Now that container of glue is just some regular school glue with a little bit of water mixed in there. I'm just draping some glue down on my cardboard and laying those little pieces of packing paper over the top and gluing them down on top of that. And I'm just going to layer this up, and I'm going to do 2 layers on both sides of this cardboard. All right, I found these stickers in my stash, and I've had them a long time. I've had them so long that the sticker backing didn't work anymore. I did have to drill a hole in the middle of this so that my clock could pop on through, and I also had to trim it out a little bit, and so that it would be able to sit down in that paper mache. It it was not easy when you don't have a router tool, but I made it work. Look at here, I had my my box cutter, and I just trimmed around that, and I cut that out so that it fit in there nicely. It did take me a little while, but it did work. Look at how messy that was, but it worked. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and get this started. We're going to go ahead and use the hazelnut on here. Apparently I've been hazelnutty this whole week, and I am going to cover this whole thing front to end back in the hazelnut chalk paint by Waverly. You can see here I flipped it on over, and I did a nice coat on the back of it already. It was easy to do because that packing paper was really about the right color. Now I'm using my Mod Podge here, and I'm actually going over the whole clock with some Mod Podge so that it would be nice and sealed. I'm also taking my sponge here, and I'm dabbing it because I didn't want the clock to have streaks. So I just went over it and just dab, 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 dab. All right, so now it's time to start piecing these cards and game pieces on there. I went ahead and started with, I have a little clue piece, and the cards came off of it, so I just glued that back down. I have my clock hands here, and I want to see just exactly where they're going to fit. I think this is going to be perfect. I'll be able to put the cards and the dice on the outside where I used the plate to measure around the cardboard. I'm only going to put the dice at the 3, 6, 9, and 12, and then that way I can put the other game pieces in between there and make it more of a fun game clock. My husband worked in the casino industry for years and years, and he had some real poker chips, and we thought about adding them on there, but honestly, this clock is kind of small, and I thought that they were just going to be too big. But these sticker pieces were the perfect size, so I'm just laying them out here to see exactly where I want them to be, and then I will start gluing these down. I went through a deck of cards left over for the casino days, and I just pulled an ace and a king out, and I'm going to lay those and glue those down right into the center of this clock. And I need to make sure that they're going to stay down nicely so that they don't lift up for those clock hands. So I'm going to go ahead and I thought I would use some Mod Podge. They did not stay down with the Mod Podge. I'm going to tell you right now, I had to go back in with some of my Quick and Thick. Actually, that wasn't Mod Podge. That was the glue I used for the paper mache. Wasn't going to hold it down there. So let's get this party started. I'm going to start by gluing my dice down at the 12, 3, 6, and 9. And we will go ahead and get those down there. And all set and glued. You see that my cards were coming up, so I went ahead and used the tight bond on there and rubbed it down nicely. The other glue was still there. I didn't have to worry about it. I just used my tight bond over the top of that. And now with the boards, I wanted it to be curved just a little bit so it wasn't just square sticking out there. So I went ahead and trimmed it off and curved along there. And of course, there's our Scrabble pieces. Let's make some words. And then the clue board. I mean, it just didn't take much for me to glue on off of there. And I added the little cards and stuff. It was really fun. So, was it Colonel Mustard in the dining room? You can see on the back of those, though, that the stickers just popped right off. They're so old. I can't even remember when I bought them. I'm thinking about 15, 20 years ago. I don't know. It was a long time. I was going to put them in the scrapbook for my kids for our game nights when they were growing up. And now they're all out of the house and I still didn't use them. So, hey, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get the clock hands on here. And I'm just putting them on the back of that after I stuck the base in the back. And you just screw that second hand right on top. And I'm going to add the battery. I was like, okay, is this going to work? And look at there. I'm going to go ahead and set the time. And I was so happy it's working. And it is still holding the correct time right now. I did have some tiny Scrabble pieces left over. Did have to add some more glue to it. And so I just spelled out a couple words. And since I didn't have the full set of letters, I was trying to be really creative. I came up with sassy and pod, sassy pod. So it turned out really cute. I really liked the way it turned out. I could have used some more bright colors, but I thought, this will work, and it turned out nice. Okay, it's time for the Band-Aids. My goodness. Okay, fortunately, I had a bunch of these on hand. When you get older and you're thin as Skinner, your skin is thinner, and your husband's on blood thinners, you kind of keep them around because his job kind of bangs them up. So, we do have them around. He takes them in his lunchbox and keeps them handy there, and we keep them handy at home because I'm a klutz. We don't know where we get all our little cuts and scrapes when we get older. It just happens. So, I have got one of those little branch pieces from Dollar Tree. Had that in my stash for quite some time. This is a piece off of the tree at my daughter's house that Joe cut for me, and I wanted it to be nice and rough. It has been drying, and I had a dehumidifier with it, and it's been like this for 2 years now. So this ought to be good and ready to go. Still messy, but that's what I wanted it to be, kind of rustic there. I have some wire. I have some 18 gauge wire here, and I have some probably, this might be 20 gauge, probably 20 gauge here. So I'll see which one I want to use. I have a nice diameter. This is a nice piece that you would use to maybe do some cross stitch, hold your material in there. I thought that would be a perfect base for the size of a mushroom for top that. So I'm going to make Band-Aid mushrooms, I hope. Let's get started. Before we get started, I'm going to let you know that this is a Just Our Imagination challenge. We have our hosts, Rustic and Lace DIY, that's Brenda, and we have Kathy Joe's DIY, and we have two co-hosts. We have Craft Away with me and Z9 Design. So check these women out. I will leave their links below. Okay, so I have the 18 gauge wire, and I thought I would use this to measure it, and it was just too difficult to keep it still. So I'm using a can of my Rust-Oleum sealer, and I'm using that to wrap it around and hook it nice and tight around that can and pull it off. Now I'm going to go ahead and just squeeze it, cut off the excess, and wrap it nice and tight. And I'm going to make sure that there are no sharp edges on that. I am going to use another piece of the 18 gauge, and I am going to do it about halfway around that can, cut it off, and I'm going to create the first loop around the top of that wire to create a dome. What I'm doing is creating a loop on one side and a loop in the other, hooking it around that 18 gauge wire, squeezing it nice and tight, and then I'm going to bring it to the other side halfway and do the same thing there. Okay, so I have my pieces of wire snipped. I'm holding the original one in place, and I'm going to take that first one, wrap it around the top, and then over to the other side, and then wrap it around and out. And we're going to do that with all of our wires. Okay, so I've got 4 on there, 4 on each side. Once I've got those all snipped, I'm going to come in with my bandages now, and I want to make sure that the whole base is going to be covered with the bandages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open half the sides here, and I am going to pull the cotton piece out of the center because I want this to be flat and be able to wrap all the way around. Now, because the cotton was in the center, I had to use some of my Type Bond Quick and Thick and put over that so I could pull it up, and it would actually glue together and it would not slide off of our wires. So that is one of the quick tips right there. And it has been, I went ahead and do it again, lay it on there, and I'm going to overlap one side of the bandage, make sure that glue's on there, fold it up, let it grab itself, and glue it on. Okay, so I'm going to start weaving some little Band-Aid pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that little piece of gauze. And I have 5 that I've already done. And I'm leaving the protector paper on there for right now, so I can just get that off and I won't lose my sticky as I'm working on these. This did take a little finagling because they're sticky. Thank you, May. But I did it. I just went ahead and stuck part of it down on my table there and relayed the protective sheeting. Then I went ahead and rolled it up and stuck it to the table so I could actually start weaving this like a basket weave. And it didn't take too long to get started. Lay it on down there. I did realize I was going to need probably a little bit of glue when I laid these down, so I did start putting a little bit of that Quick and Thick Titebond glue on there. But look, this is actually going to turn out rather cute. I was really surprised. It didn't take too awful long. Once I got the hang of what I was doing and being able to lay it down and glue it to the same pieces, it took a little bit of patience. So I just lifted it up and I wanted to measure to see just how much more it was going to need to go over this. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to add more to that. But that's okay. We just went ahead and cut a few more pieces. So I'm going to continue and add on to this until I have enough to cover my mushroom top. So to help with the poofiness, I'm going to use this triple layer non-stick Band-Aid. I'm going to lay it down and put the bandages on that so I can help shape it when I need it. So I originally opened 10 bandages. I had to do 4 more, and this is what I'm going to go for next. So now I'm going to go ahead and just remove. Okay, this didn't take too awful long to do. I just had to add some on 2 of the sides to make it a little bigger so that I could actually cut it in a round circle type thing. Once I hit it on the top of my my mushroom, I went ahead and trimmed off the edges so I would have nice straight edges of our bandages, and then I went ahead and checked it on the top of our dome, and it turned out that it was going to be just fine. Now I did use some little slivers here of the bandages. Those were cut into quarter strips and then right in half with the cotton pieces removed, and those are going to help me to actually like steri strip it onto this dome. So I put one piece down on one side and one piece down on the other so that once I set it on top of the dome, I could pull all 4 sides down and have them attached and then start working my way out from there so that I wouldn't have big bulky areas where I needed them. I went ahead and just used a little bit of hot glue in that center and then down on those little strips and brought it right on up and glued it right on to the inside of that nonstick pad. Once I did this, it made it a little easier to come right on around and trim off the excess to create a circle around our dome here. So what I did is I went ahead and used some hot glue around the outside edge, pulled those up and just secured them right in place so that we wouldn't have any extra bulk along the outside and I can just trim them off. I did that on all 4 corners so that we would have a nice secure base, and the wires on the inside is actually holding up our bandages. I'm going to come in now and I'm just going to trim off around the edges there, and it does poof out a little bit, but that's where our little steri strips are going to come in, where we can just use those and some hot glue and strip them on down. And that's exactly what I did. I used the cotton that I pulled off of them all, and I hot glued it down into the center, used 2 more bandages to strip across the top of that to hold that in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and just start building this bottom here and creating the fairy part.
emotions in a healthy manner, and just become the right person that actually matters. And every day I drive my car to my little job, and I find some peace in the stations that I throw on. But I wish there was a song with your name as the title. Oh yeah, I wish there was a song with your name as the title. Oh yeah. And the moods that I hate, I tend to embrace. Wonder why I'm so opposite, I'm so backwards and upside down. I'm such a clown, but I've got no frown on my little face. Why am I so freaking cute sometimes, yeah? Such drama queen, such drama queen.
Just a reminder that this is a collab, Just Our Imagination. Our co-hosts are Crafted Away with May and Z9 Design. Our hosts are Kathy Jo DIYs and Brenda with Rustic and Lace DIYs. The playlist will be in the description box below.
'Cause I'm tired of feeling low and sad and depressed. I gotta move on. La 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 la. I wish that I could cough out my emotions in a healthy manner, and just become the right person that actually matters. And every day
Now my yellow paint here was a little old, and so it was really blotchy. So I did my best to use the end of my sponge and just dab it on there. I went ahead and I found this set of fairies on a teeter-totter in my stash, and here it is. Look at how cute this turned out. I wish it was a little smoother for the mushroom, but I think all in all this turned out really cute. It wasn't what, I mean, I had so many ideas trying to pop up and like, no. And then finally I'm like, a mushroom. I can do a mushroom. And I think this turned out really cute. What do you guys think about this one?
and the moods that I hate.
All right, y'all, this is the Tide container. I did go over it a few times with some white spray paint. I'm going to go ahead and start decorating it now for what I'm doing. I did have my other videos done, just needing edited before my brother passed, and so I've been out west all week, and now I'm trying to catch up. This is my last project I need to do. So it is Sunday evening, and I got home at 3 a.m. this morning, so hopefully I can get this all done for you and up and ready to go. So I spray painted this in flat white, and now I have my Mod Podge, and I have some rice paper that I printed these beautiful Highlands cows on, and I'm gonna make just like a little vase to stick some floral arrangements in, whether they're silk or you can even do fresh if you wanted to. But I'm gonna start by getting this on here, and then I'll do some other things around it. I had different plans, but you know how it goes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get this ready to roll. And I am going to get started here by trimming around my Highlands cow images. I got these off of Fabrica.com.
So I usually water around these before I put them on, but like I said, I have been just really having a crazy week, so I put these on a little different, and I used the Mod Podge to go around, and then just used a screwdriver there to pull it off. And you see that the ink from my paper kind of spread out a little bit, and I liked that. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I use an inkjet printer, not an expensive one at all, but it worked out just fine for what I needed, especially after I got all the other painting done on it. So I just went ahead and sealed that, and when that was dry, I went ahead and did the back side. I have a smaller image, and I did go around with the water on this one, and I put too much water on there, so you see my ink spreading there too. I tell you guys, it was a rough week, but I made it through, and I'm crafting. So I have my air dry modeling clay, and I have some cornstarch, and I'm just going to take a little cornstarch and brush inside of my little molds there. Easy enough. This clay will pop out so easy if you've got that cornstarch in there lining it, so it won't stick. So I'm making sure I'm conditioning my air dry clay. I want it to be smooth and warm, and so it will be conditioned enough and pop out of there and dry properly. It won't have any cracks. And I'm just putting it right on into that mold there and pressing it on in with my rolling pin for my clay, and it just started pulling up. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's in there good enough. So I pulled it off, and I used one of my clay tools to just trim around those so that I can get the excess clay off of there. It's not difficult to do. It would have been easier if I just put them in right. Like on this one, I had them all in there. I didn't have any excess around the edges. And you see how easy that was to pop out because I had dusted it with cornstarch. Now I'm putting it on this lid so you can actually see the contrast a little bit better. And they just turned out beautiful. I'm very happy with that. So besides the flowers, I wanted to put some little vines going up the sides. And I also wanted to do a top and a bottom edge on these. So I went ahead and just rolled this out. And you see, I'm just making sure it's long enough to go around the top of that edge where those pieces come together. So I'm using my Quick and Thick Tight Bond here. Worked out perfectly, and I'm laying that rolled clay right on over that and continuing around with my glue and just making a little bit of water, pulling those together and giving it a good seal. I have a little sponge there that I dip in water, and I make it all the clay a little bit more damp. Then I come through with a little piece of aluminum foil and give it the texture. So when I paint this, it'll look more like greenery. And you see I did the bottom piece too. And now I'm just rolling some little snake-like pieces to make some vines going up the sides of these. And I'm going to go ahead and use my Tight Bond Quick and Thick again on there. And I'm just going to lay that right on top of there. Pinch it off and making sure that they're all on there. It doesn't have to be perfect because vines are all over the place. They're thick, they're thin, and they just roll in. They just roll with it. What can I say? So I went ahead and just put some on each side of my container here, and I just wanted to make sure that it had a little more interest when I was doing this. And once I got the first side done, I went ahead and did something very similar to the opposite side of this container. And here we go. I've got both sides on there and nice and glued. So I want to make sure that my flowers are going to go in there nicely. And I'm just going to take a little bit of my glue and put them on the back, and I'm just going to layer these flowers on up. So I now have a 3D effect with those flowers that are actually on there with that Highlands cow. Now I'm going to paint these, obviously, and I'm going to be using the colors that are in that image. And so I think it's going to turn out beautiful. Like I said, it wasn't what I intended to do the first time around, but life happens and we go with the flow of it. I'm going to take this time to thank you for joining me today. I do like spending time with you, and I know that it is your time is priceless, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me and crafting with me on this day. So I have some of my chalk paint, and this is in hazelnut, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to put one coat on for right now. And I am now going to pull those acrylic paints and my moss chalk paint. Now I'm using a makeup sponge with my moss chalk paint, and I'm going around those vines, and I'm not doing a very detailed job on it. I'm just going around, going across the tops of those and kind of pressing it in just a bit and just outlining those vines and the greenery around the bottom. I wanted to make sure I had something on there. And this is just a little messy process. You see here, look at that hazelnut. It is just a mess on there. But because I did use the flat spray paint, it did take me a little bit more to cover it. So I'm coming in now with a paintbrush in that moss green, and I wanted to touch up the vines that I laid down before I put the flowers on top of it. Now I have some acrylic paints to the side, and you see I have all kinds of different colors there, and I'm going to be using those to blend together as I create this this container for the flowers. And it does take some time, and this is really sped up because my hands, I'm just a slow painter, and I don't want to make a mess out of it. But you know, it does take time sometimes. And I'm going to come in with my colors. I have some dark red, some yellow, some oranges, and some burnt umber, and that green, and a little bit of white up there to the side. And I'm going to just start mixing these together until I get the colors I want for the flowers I'll be putting together. So this particular one I'm doing right now is actually a rose. So I wanted a little lighter color as I laid down that base so that I can come back in with the darker color and kind of get down into those crevices so you can actually see the detail of that clay piece that I'm doing. All right, y'all, I need to come in and put another coat of the hazelnut and then seal it, and we will be ready to fill this with decorations. So I'm going to go ahead and put that last coat on there and spray it down with some flat. Here's some clear, and it's Dead Flat by Universal Rust-Oleum. So I'll spray that down once I get that last coat on and dried, and then I will show you what it looks like. Here all four of my projects are. Starting with our lovely Bandaid Fairy Garden, our Tide vase, our no crochet, no knit scarf, using our yarn, and our game room clock using our dice. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate the time you spend with me. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please subscribe. And if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. That really does help my channel. Check out the playlist below and check out the other crafters who are participating in this challenge. And as always, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.